Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything's revolving around Euro 2020. And my name's Suj.
And my name is James.
It's one day to go before we get into what a sneeze! Into the last 16. As soon as I started my sentence, I knew
yesterday you warned us you were going to sneeze on the podcast and then never did, and this time you just burst everyone's eardrum.
24 hours later, I'm just sneeze.
It's true. You did warn everyone yesterday.
Couldn't stop myself. We've got a little bit of time to go. Obviously, everybody in the game is on Wildcard, James.
Our unlimited transfers. It's obviously what everyone's on. And there's kind of two different strategies because there's players who've used the Wildcard and players who haven't. I'm going to work on the basis that the majority of people listening to this have used their limitless, but there probably are some who have used no chips so far and are looking to take advantage of something in a semi-final or something, for example. We're in different positions because I've used Wildcard and you haven't.
Yep.
So it might be interesting to see. I mean, I've done a draft, which I would say is locked in because I did it Wednesday night after the group stage was completed. Had a play around with it last night and I've landed on exactly the same team. So I think, bar team news, I'm probably locked in.
Indeed. You said you were going to clarify something on the rules.
Yeah, just something of note, just to clarify, is that points do continue to be scored in extra time. So if you've got a defender and the game finishes 0-0 and he's still on the pitch in extra time and they lose 1-0 in extra time, you do not get the clean sheet points. So the points carry on into extra time. But similarly, look, you could have a defender who comes on at 55 minutes and plays till 120 and actually gets a clean sheet points. So it's just a note that points will continue to be scored. Obviously, same for goal scorers, assisters, etc. In extra time, penalty shootouts do not count, obviously. Okay. Otherwise, we'd all be looking for the goalkeeper that's going to be the penalty shootout, basically. So penalty shootouts don't count. Extra time does count. Points continue as normal through extra time.
Okie dokie. I've got quite a all-in strategy, I would call it, at the moment. So I've gone 4 Italians: Donnarumma, Spinazzola, Insigne, Immobile. I've got 3 French: Kimpembe, Pogba, Benzema. I've got 3 Dutch: Dumfries, Wijnaldum, Depay. And then I've got a sprinkling of others, which is basically Damsgaard, Forsberg, Goossens, Olsen, and Mahle.
Where's Harry Kane? You suggested he was going to have Harry Kane.
He's gone. He's gone.
Bottled
Can't afford him, basically, to be honest. It's more. I've ended up spreading my money around rather than maybe powering, but I've still got the likes of Pogba, Wijnaldum, Insigne. Damsgaard had a good game and he's good value, I think, at 5.9. Forsberg, obviously, he's got his shooting boots on. My defense, I think Dumfries, Spinazzola, Kimpembe, Mahle, Goossens is strong. I feel like Sweden have got a good chance of keeping a clean sheet against Ukraine. So Olsen as a backup keeper. For 5.1, a backup keeper is quite a bit of money. But it still leaves me 0.3 in the bank should I want to turn someone into a slightly more expensive option. But I feel like I'm set up okay and I won't need to do that.
Yeah, there's nothing in there I would describe as terrible picks or anything, mate. I'm surprised you're not a little bit more all in, considering you're going to wildcard after this round. So you're essentially completely on a free hit.
Yeah, it's more giving myself some options in the latter couple of days. Should I get any blanks I want to put in? So the likes of Olsen, I mean, he's only going to play if Spinazzola blanks tomorrow, and Forsberg. Same.
You know, Olsen the keeper, yeah. To clarify, yeah. You mean if Donnarumma blanks, yeah.
Donnarumma blanks, sorry, yeah. So he's coming in later. Goossens is there up my sleeve as a later on option. So there's 3 of them there.
How many Italians you got?
4.
Okay, I was going to say Bonucci maybe. You've got Kimpembe, haven't you?
Kimpembe, I'm just a safe option.
Yeah,
safe option really. Benzema and Pogba.
Okay, I don't think there's another French defender you can get to, though. I was going to say Goossens up to... So just looking at it going, yeah, listen, Goossens great, but actually on the free hit, if you're wildcarding in quarterfinals, is that one of the best picks you can have this week? I'm not convinced that it is, really. I'd probably be looking to force in maybe even like Van Aanholt It's the second one. I take it you've got Dumfries, the
I've
Lit
got
maybe
Dumfries. I've got
as
Dumfries.
another alternative. Me personally, I think if I was wildcarding in the quarterfinals, I would probably have 12 players from France, Italy, and Holland.
12, eh? Well, I'm sitting on 10 at the moment, so I can get one more in.
I think it'd be France, Italy, Holland, all in, and then sprinkling of the players playing on the final day as cover for captaincy, perhaps a Denmark player, because there's a few obviously very good cheap Danish options which you can fit into this.
Damsgaard I've got already, so
yeah. No, I don't think you've got anything particularly bad in there, mate. I just a little bit surprised it's not all in, but I mean you kind of are basically. No England players, right?
None whatsoever. Okay. So I can watch that game with just no. Well, I wouldn't have ever watched it with any kind of Euro slant anyway. But
so I think I'll tell you my team now. I think there's a couple of things that I wanted to set out in my plans, which was to make sure that I've got a fairly even balance between the two halves of the draw. I don't think like you could obviously have 8 players from France and Italy, but if you then go another 4 players from Spain, for example, you're leaving yourself potentially quite light on the other side of draw, captain options. You could be in a position suddenly where you've got no one on the Saturday in the quarterfinals, for example. So you have to factor in what days teams are going to play in the quarterfinals, not just the last 16. So I'll give you a good example of this. So I've gone Stekelenburg in goal. Who's 4.7 million. So I would then therefore wanted personally a goalkeeper that was on the other side of the draw. So rule out the teams that I think will probably get beat. So Croatia, Austria, and Switzerland. Rule out a second choice keeper from them, which kind of left me France, Italy, Spain, toss up between Portugal and Belgium. But Portugal and Belgium would play the same day as Holland in the quarterfinals. That actually kind of rules them out as well. So that's why it kind of led me to Italy, France, and Spain as options. I've decided to go with no Spain. And I've actually gone with Lloris as the backup keeper. Because as good as France are, actually picking their options is not easy. Like we discussed yesterday, the problems in the fullback areas where there's a little bit of doubt of who's going to play. If I knew Hernandez was going to play, I'd pay the extra for him, to be very honest. So I've gone Lloris, gives me a keeper on both sides of the draw. I've wanted to go as many Italy, France, and Holland as possible. So I've got 4 Italy, Spinazzola, Berardi, Insigne, and Immobile. I've got 3 French, which is Lloris, Kimpembe, and Benzema. 4 Dutch, Stekelenburg, Dumfries, Wijnaldum, and Pai. And I've got 2 Danes, Joachim Mæhle and Martin Damsgaard. I think it's a great little option. It feels like he's in everybody's Twitter team at 5.9 million, but take a closer look, he's still only about 1% owned. And the final 2 players I've got at the moment are Goossens and Raheem Sterling. And part of the thinking of that is obviously the chance of them both returning are 0, right? They're obviously 2 good available substitutes for the final day. Gives me a captaincy option for the final day, which, to be honest, at the moment, I'd probably go Sterling over Goossens based on his form recently. But I think once I know the winner of England, Germany, if my other teams go through, France, Italy, Holland particularly, then it's England or Germany that I'm really going to want to be targeting in the quarterfinals. So if I start with 1, if I can get that up to 3 at least, and then I feel like I've almost got like another 3-hit team in the quarterfinals potentially, because I mean, I think Netherlands and Denmark will probably go for. I think Denmark-Wales is close, but I have a slight favoritism for Denmark. I expect the Netherlands, France, and Italy all to win. Now, obviously, this can go tits up, right?
But the game.
Yeah. But I could spread the funds across other people like Forsbergs and Yarmolenko's and do a similar thing, and then look at it and go, one of them's going to play Germany or England in the last 8. Do I fancy them anyway? Probably not. They'll be underdogs. So I think if I was free hitting this week, I think I'd have perhaps some Sweden coverage rather than Ukraine. But otherwise, I've kind of gone all in on this. Back in the 4 teams. I mean, Netherlands, Denmark could be 1 quarterfinal. I think France and Italy could be another semi-final, and then I'm loading up. Like I said, if those 4 teams win, I'm then probably targeting England or Germany, the winner of that, with my free transfers for the quarterfinals. And to be honest, if I could, you've got three free transfers. I think I'd probably just make two.
If
And roll one.
I mean, look, we're picking players from teams that we think are going to win their matches, right? Otherwise, why would you?
Exactly,
There's every chance. I'm looking at it like, yeah, France, Netherlands, and Italy go through. Denmark beat Wales, and I've only got like 3 players that I need to change for players that are playing in the last 16. Wildcard, what for kind of situation, because I'll have 3 free transfers. If I'm happy with my players from France, Italy, and the Netherlands, which I am as it stands at the moment, because I think I've got the best options that I could afford. Wildcard, I'm not sure what for, but then I've got 5 transfers in the following 2 game weeks anyway into the semis and into the finals.
I think if you still got it, you definitely use it in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise it's pointless. So let's see how it plays out. Shall we look at these games and anybody that comes up on your watch list?
Yeah, I mean, just to add on, one thing I really don't like about my team, although I'm pretty sure this is what I'm going to go with, unless there's some team news that influences something, is I spoke yesterday about the high price points.
Yeah.
So the only one I've really got there is Lloris. I think defensively, we spoke yesterday that moving around sort of the 5.5 areas, the Spinazzola's, Dumfries and stuff, it should be quite straightforward. Like Maguire, for example, if it comes up, Matt Hummels of Germany's 5 million. There's options where that's very easy to move around. Suddenly, though, getting to a De Bruyne, a Lukaku or Ronaldo is going to be quite tough for me if it's needed. But I'm gambling that it's not. And I've kind of, I've made it a 15-player game. I think there's some people, and I don't think it's a wrong strategy to do here, is to put in like a 4 million or so to kind of stretch out that budget or so. So one thing I'm possibly considering is if Italy, France and Holland win and Denmark go out, there's a 4 million Welsh midfielder, Colehill, I think it is. Mm-hmm. I might just pick him up for the quarterfinals so I can spread from Melee up to another premium player.
Yeah.
I've kind of tried to look in my head scenarios of if certain teams lose. I mean, look, if France, Italy and Holland all lose, then literally nothing I can do. It's part of the gamble, right?
Yeah. I mean, the likelihood of that is very, very, very low. You weren't tempted with like a Bale or Ramsey or anything like that?
No, Bale a bit expensive. Ramsey,
similar.
I think I would have gone Forsberg over the 2 of Sweden, personally. It wasn't for me. I didn't. I think that one where I've gone 1 Germany and 1 England is part because I'm pretty sure that I'm going to want to target one of those 2 teams in the quarterfinals. So I've already got one as a starting point. I think to be spreading between Denmark, Wales wouldn't have been my style because there's every chance they'd then go into the quarterfinal and still be underdogs if they're playing the Netherlands. So would I then want to be adding more to them? Probably not. So I've just gone down the Denmark route.
Italy, Austria. Who are you thinking from Italy? I mean, Austria, you're having nobody, and I don't think anybody is. Other than the likes of Spinazzola, Donnarumma, you've got Berardi, you've got Insigne, Locatelli.
Well, even Bachmann of Austria has jumped up in price a little bit, I think. So, I mean, it's only a little bit more to go to Stekelenburg. So I don't really see the argument to go with Daniel Bachmann, personally. But I think near enough the whole Italian squad is viable. Donnarumma looks like he's going to be the most popular keeper by a distance, which is understandable. 5.6, 41% owned. Immobile, Spinazzola, Insigne, we know will be popular. I think Bonucci at 5.6 is very reasonable. Acerbi is one that I might come back to. Is 5.1. I think he's a decent one for free hitters this week. Like if you've only got 3 Italians, if he's going to play because he's cheap enough at 5.1. I think for me, it'd be more a problem of it might be a headache that I put him in and Chiellini might be back for the quarterfinals or the semis and then he's back out the team. And that's where you can take that risk right now. I can't really. That's going to be a headache transfer I don't need. And I think Berardi at 6.2, as long as it looks like he's going to stay in the team, which I think he will, is so solid in that area. I know he looks like he's the sort of player. He's got the ability, but he's probably going to frustrate. You cannot argue that in an Italian front three at 6.2.
No. He's very cheap. I'm not going to go with it because I'm not convinced 100% that I can see him starting. He's likely to, but not enough of a certainty for me. Netherlands. Anyone from Netherlands that was on your watch list but didn't make the cut? You mentioned PVA. From the midfield, I didn't know if De Jong or
I think the
Marlon
main
or
one for me was
Weghorst.
Marlon.
Marlon.
I think
Again, it's
Marlon
a
will
risk.
play, but again, it's the same problem for me. It could be Marlon or Weghorst, and it could suddenly be a transfer that I don't need. So I've manipulated the situation, so I'm paying the extra for Depay. I think Marlon is probably better for Depay than Weghorst, is the conclusion I've come to. But it might be that it comes down to opponents. So, I mean, if you take, they're obviously playing the Czech Republic this weekend. They might decide that even Weghorst in defensive situations, although he didn't defend the defensive situation against Ukraine in match day 1 very well, they might decide that little bit of extra height might be useful for them. I think there's every chance Marlon will play, but the problem with that is as well, at 6.0, if he is out the team and I'm struggling for funds, I mean, it's an absolute nightmare to get back off. It would almost be better to say Italy went out and it becomes clear that he's going to be in the team, drop down from Immobile to him in the quarterfinals for me, rather than do that now. I think for free hitters, I'd consider him or Weghorst if you've got an inclination of which one's going to play. I think it will probably be Marlon.
I agree with you, but not using a spot for a maybe, unfortunately.
No, I agree. And with sort of Depay and Wijnaldum looking and Dumfries looking strong offensively anyway, I don't think there's the need to take the gamble. I think Stekelenburg's price allows me, it's no risk at 4.7 Dutch goalkeeper when currently they'd be favourites to get to the semi-finals and possibly the final, depending on who they may meet if they progress that far. Yeah. There is one Czech player I wanted to shout out, which is Holers, a 4.5 million midfielder who's playing for him. And he's probably the cheapest playing midfielder at the moment. If you want your kind of 2-pointer and something that's cheap, there isn't one really sort of cheaper price than him, but it feels like a waste to me, I think.
Schick, not of interest.
Not for me. He's done really great. He was so anonymous against England, it wasn't his fault particularly, that I didn't even notice he got subbed off, mate.
Right, okay.
Not for me. Playing better quality of opposition. Not that I think they're great defensively, the Dutch, but not for me. I mean, I think he's a reasonable pick if you think they'll beat Holland. Otherwise, no.
No. What about the evening game? I mean, we've both swerved Belgium, Portugal. I originally started with Cristiano Ronaldo in my team, but had to sub him out just because I didn't want to put that much money into Ronaldo. I don't know. I mean, I'd happily go a Lukaku, but with no certainty that they're going to go through, I'd rather not. And I can go back to him depending on if he goes through or what have you. And I've got 3 expensive strikers here in Benzema, Depay, and Immobile. So getting to Lukaku from me afterwards is not going to be a problem.
I think for those like you, and this is part of the conclusion I came to as well for myself, was for those of you who are going to wildcard in the quarterfinals, Belgium play Portugal on Sunday after you've seen the Dutch team versus the Czech Republic. Are you going to captain De Bruyne or Ronaldo, for example? And you know they're going to play. There's not a doubt about it. But are you going to captain either of them over Depay or Wijnaldum versus the Czechs if you've got, or even Dumfries? And I think unless the answer is yes, then you don't go with them.
Yeah.
I think for me, I was very tempted to go with Ronaldo just because so much power of a player to hold on. But I think they might get beat. I think this game, it's arguably the toughest one to call, isn't it? In the last 16. So and the winner's going to play France. So, I mean, how much of it do you want? Whatever it is, for Belgium or Portugal to hit the final, the chances are they're probably going to have to beat each other, France or Italy, then France or Italy, just to get to the final. Or even Spain in there as well. Yeah, so they're going to have 3 tough games, whatever it is. So I think the elite ones, like Ronaldo, Lukaku's and stuff, of course, they're absolutely reasonable to go with. They're the prices they are for a reason. But I decided that there was no way I'd be captaining either of them actually ahead of the Dutch options on Sunday. So that's why I've gone without.
What are your thoughts on the Croatia-Spain game?
Just want to give a shout out for Dalot, by the way, on Portugal. It's 4.5 million.
Yeah, with Semedo being injured, right?
I don't know if he is or he isn't, but if he is out, that lot of 4.5 could be really interesting. 0% owned. And I repeat what I said yesterday. I think Jota for free hitters is quite interesting at 8.6 million. Mounier will be popular for those who fancy Belgium to do well. I think Denier will get the nod at centre half. Is obviously 4.5. Again, I've just decided to ignore it. What was your game, Suj? Sorry.
Croatia, Spain that we both swerved.
I have swerved it, and never easy for me to swerve even Perisic because it's been absolutely brilliant for myself. Still only 3% owned, 8.6. I think it's another one. If they're going to walk into tough game to tough game to tough game, how much do I want of it? And it's the same even with them defensive Spanish players. So Simon, 5.1, great option. Garcia or Torres, 4.5, 4.6 respectively. If we get confirmation, I think Garcia might play actually. I think, as I said yesterday, Pau Torres could be quite dangerous for people. Jordi Alba at 6.1, great option because of the offensive as much as the defensive. Moreno 6.6 and Sarabia of PSG is obviously broken into the team. 6.5 is really, really interesting if he stays in the team. I think they'll beat Croatia, but I wouldn't fancy them beyond that, I don't think. So, again, for me, looking longer term, at the moment, I've just decided to kind of miss out on the match.
Spain don't interest me particularly, and neither do Croatia. But France, Switzerland, no temptation from Bolo or Shaqiri.
None whatsoever, mate, personally.
Maybe because you think they're going to go out, so there's no point in picking players from teams that are going to go out.
In my situation, yeah. I mean, I know, as I said, I'm definitely losing one from Germany, England, but I think there's a reason why I've gone down that route. So,
yes,
I mean, for
bets,
me,
basically.
Switzerland, Austria, and Czech Republic are the three no's for me this week. Unless you suggested you thought the Swiss might upset them. I can't see it.
I don't think it's likely, but it wouldn't be the biggest surprise in the world because of just they've been playing all right with high energy.
The thing is, at this stage, you're picking a Switzerland player. They're playing against what most people think is the strongest team left in the competition. What are you? Yeah. What are you? I couldn't make a case for a Shaqiri over like a Forsberg or something.
No, agreed.
And to be honest, there's even obviously people like we'll speak about in a sec, like Bukayo Saka, Leon Goretzka, who might play in the England-Germany game and obviously could carry you further in the tournament.
No, I've not even looked at what position Saka is in the game.
Mbappe, I don't think is worth the extra over Benzema. And I think Benzema's a really cheeky differential, considering his ownership is currently a third of Mbappe's at the moment and 2 million cheaper. You can obviously then use that 2 million somewhere else. I think Koundé, who played at right back in place of Pavard, would be a monster punt at 4.5 million. I don't know if he'll play, but if he carried on at right back, he'd be all the rage very, very quickly at that price. He's 1% owned currently.
What about this England-Germany game then? You've gone with Raheem Sterling, another player that I had. He was the only player that made it into my draft before I had to find 500,000. So I had to get rid of him.
There were 5 English players that kind of really come under consideration for myself. So Pickford, but I couldn't really justify it because it's the same side of the draw as Stekelenburg. But they are on different quarters. So, I mean, there's a chance, obviously, those two nations could meet in the semi-final. I think what I wouldn't want is that decision when they hit the semi-final and go, which one do I play? Don't really want to be fucking about with the goalkeepers. So I think Pickford came into consideration. The other one defensively for me is Maguire, who I see a lot of people going John Stones, and it's absolutely fine. But they're both going to play, and Maguire's 0.1 cheaper now. And I don't see any reason, therefore, why Stones would be a better pick than Maguire, in my opinion. Saka, 6.5, 0% owned. He's extremely interesting if he's going to play. I don't think he's not the sort of player I think that we would expect to particularly get attacking returns. Kind of falls into the Berardi category. But a 6.5 as a starter, wide on the right of a front three, if he's going to play, it's got to be interesting. And there seems to be a kind of increased momentum for him to keep his place in the team, in the media. Kane obviously comes into consideration. I couldn't justify the 11.5.
No, it's just
personally.
Too expensive. When you've got Benzema, Depay, Immobile, they're all cheaper.
I think he's one. If I was to lose one of Italy, France, or Holland, and England went
and England
through,
go through. Let's make that big asterisk.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking massive here. Then I would rework the system to have Kane in, I think, for the quarterfinals and a potential semi-final. I would want that, but I'm not desperate for it at the moment. I think the 2 million saving on Raheem Sterling, he's probably worth it on what we've seen so far. Remember, he hit the post against Czech Republic as well, missed a great early chance against Croatia. He is the man who's having the majority of the chances, whatever people do or don't think of him at the moment. So I think Sterling at 9.6, I think it's reasonable. It's kind of borderline in terms of what I'd want to be playing for a player who I think may go out anyway. But as I said, if England did go through, then I think Raheem Sterling is probably the first name I would want, actually. Yeah. That's part why I've got him in. For the Germans,
I'd get a bit of John Stones as well, to be honest with you. But I don't see this England-Germany game being 0-0. So defensively, I'm not. I
just personally, I don't see why to go for Stones over Maguire now.
Yeah.
If anything, Maguire's probably a slightly bigger threat from set pieces.
Are they the same price?
Maguire's 0.1 cheaper now. Stone's 5.6.
Yeah. Okay.
I realise it doesn't make any particular difference for the majority of people, but it might come in handy. And I don't think there's enough between them to justify paying for the one who's higher price, personally. Unless people honestly think there's a doubt about Maguire starting, I wouldn't think there's any. Would you?
Nope.
No.
Now that he's played, no, nothing.
Goosen's at 5.2. I'm not big on it for this particular round. He is 16% owned. But again, I think a little bit like in Sterling's case, if Germany do go through, he's probably the first one I'm going to want. So that's part why I've got him. The other two that I would have considered now is Havertz as an alternative to Sterling. So to kind of go all in Germany versus England. The other one I really like is Goretzka, who's 6.4, 1% owned. I think if something was to happen in the next 24 hours that kind of made me think that Goretzka was going to play, there's every chance I would have him come in for Sterling and leave the 3 million in the bank, I think. Because I think he could be extremely dangerous for Germany at that price. I don't know if he's going to play. But I think he's one, once he gets in the team, he's a talented boy, he'll stay in the team, I think. And he could be amazing for this knockout stage if he did play. 6.4. The issue is, again, going back to what we said throughout the group stage, you'd want the gamble to be at the start, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
And he's at the end. Now, one benefit is you will see if he'll play or not. But let's be honest, England-Germany is easily a game that could go to extra time, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So he may get his 60 minutes or so anyway, even if he's a substitute. So what do you do with it? Interesting psychology to that kind of situation, actually. I would need something to make me think, yeah. But I would say if he plays, he could be the player who returns in that game, who people aren't expecting, who's got no ownership.
And then last but not least, Sweden, Ukraine. I've just gone to Sweden. Had I had enough money to get Yarmolenko instead of Forsberg, I actually would have gone Yarmolenko over Forsberg, but I was nowhere near. And Forsberg's only, 7.3? He's quite cheap. Sweden, I think defensively they might be okay in this one. I'm going to back them, but Forsberg for me and Olsen.
Yeah, the outstanding one defensively to go for is probably Danielson, who started at 4.5. He's 4.7. I think with their defensive players, there isn't anything that really stands out in terms of offensive potential. So I think you'd go with a cheaper one. I mean, he's 0.9 cheaper than Lindelof, for example, and only 2% owned. The other one that people really got their eye on is Kulusevski, who came on and assisted the third goal against Poland. I think he's very interesting at 7 million if he starts. And unlike, say, the Goretzka scenario we just went through, you won't know. Yeah. It is the possibility because it's the final game. So I would just pay the 0.7 extra for Forsberg's 9% owned. It's still going to be a relative differential in itself. I think Ukraine, I think Zinchenko would be a no for me because, I mean, they've conceded in every game, even against North Macedonia. They lost to Austria, although maybe they wanted to lose to Austria. I think Yarmolenko or Yaremchuk would be the ones that are most of interest. I think Yaremchuk's 7.3. The problem you've got to remember with this sort of play, you go, oh, I fit him in, it's nice. When they get beat, where do you go? Makes it difficult. I mean, obviously you can use the free transfers to remove a midfield player or defender and go cheaper and go upwards. But the chances are, if you go too cheap, you're going to find some of this to get back up quite difficult. And as I've said to you, that's my concern with sort of no Ronaldo, Mbappe, Kane, is that it might be difficult for me to maneuver, actually. That would be the concern. But I've decided to skip it. I think the standout option from the two teams would be Forsberg. I think it's fairly obvious, and I don't think we have to pretend that it's not. It's not obvious.
I mean, I've not left myself masses of captaincy coverage for that. I've only got Goossens, Olsen, and Forsberg from that day. But Forsberg for me is the last captain option. Should everyone else before him fail?
I don't think it's impossible that Sweden could blag their way into the semi-final or the final.
No.
I don't think it's impossible. And that if you think that's a possibility as well, I think that's very unlikely. If you think that's a possibility as well, then I think that makes Forsberg and Danielson absolutely brilliant picks. I personally, in comparison, I think there's probably more chance of that with Mahaley, Denmark versus, say, Danielson personally. And Damsgaard is so much cheaper than Forsberg. So I can't really make the case to swing the other way with that. So I've avoided the game.
Captaincy as it stands with no knowledge of who's in the teams, which Italian player are you going to go with, Immobile or Insigne?
I've got it on Insigne at the moment. It might depend where Alaba plays.
Okay.
I think if they go...
You won't know.
No, you're right. I won't. It's the 8 o'clock game, isn't it?
You won't know. So... I'm going to go Immobile.
Do you know what? They're probably, you might even know the Austria team is still not now. I mean, he played left back against Ukraine and was extremely creative for them from that perspective. I think if Alaba was going to play in the middle of the back three again, I'd be inclined to go Immobile because he'll step out of position. And Immobile will probably draw him out as well because he likes to, drop in. That's a tough call, that one. At the moment, I'm bust on Insigne, but I won't promise anyone that I won't change that, actually. I haven't decided.
I'm bust on Immobile, and I'm probably going to stick with that. But again, yeah, you never know. I might change if I had any information. On the Sunday, I'm going Depay. You cheekily Wijnaldum or Dumfries?
Probably Depay, yeah.
Safe option.
Probably Depay. Well, so is Wijnaldum. Wijnaldum's a great option.
What about Monday? France.
If it gets that far, it'll definitely be Benzema for me.
Not Pogba, or you're not having.
I ain't got. So,
what's your views on Pogba over Benzema?
Well, if I had, no. I mean, Benzema's on the pens as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I'll be Benzema highly likely on Monday as well, and then on the Tuesday, like I mentioned, I'm going to go straight to Forsberg because I don't have any other attacking coverage anywhere else.
I think it'd be Sterling for me if it gets that far. I think the psychology of the captaincy in terms of if you get a return and if you move it on is quite interesting because I think I would have been set in my mind probably once you hit the knockout stage, what if you get a return, sit. But I think if you're moving towards Holland or then moving till France, you should probably still take the gamble, I think, that you can hit the 2 returns. But I think sort of 8-9 pointer at this stage, there's a little bit more temptation to stick. I think, for example, if you went Spinazzola on Saturday and he gets you a 6-pointer, I think that's a move.
Yeah.
But I think if you go Insigne and he's sitting there on 8 or 9, that's probably a stick. Or obviously if Spinazzola or Immobile do the same. I think 8's the borderline, whether you move or not. I think I probably still would. I think if I get 9, that's probably stick. But it's great games for the Holland and the French. The Holland. I'll get it right one day, Suj. The Netherlands and the French still to go. That I might turn it. But I also think, so for example, if I land on Benzema on Monday and he's got me 6-pointer, I would maybe stick that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And just go, yeah, sod it, with sort of maybe the Sterling's Forsbergs for people the next day. I think I would maybe just stick it. So I think probably looking for 2 returns first night, probably still 2 returns second night, and then 1 return the Monday night, and then stick. That would be my thinking at the moment. But obviously, it depends what everybody themselves has got following on, right? So,
what are you predicting the quarters as? Just because the way that they do it on the website is match 1, match this, that, and the other, but it's not actually the order that they get played in necessarily. So if Denmark go through, and beat Wales, they'll be playing the winner. Is it Netherlands and Czech Republic game?
So I think Denmark, Netherlands. Yeah.
Italy, Austria, they'll play the winner of
Portugal, Belgium. So I think Italy, Belgium, just, I think, yeah.
We've then got Croatia, Spain. They would play the winner of Sweden, Ukraine.
No, France.
No, France.
So I think Spain, France. So if you look at the quarterfinal, this is part of the point. The quarterfinal on that side, even if you went with a favoritism of bookies, let's say Belgium or Portugal, doesn't make no difference. Belgium or Portugal versus Italy, and then France versus Spain. I mean, picking returns out of that suddenly becomes really difficult. And that's why, as I've said, I think whoever wins England, Germany, that's where you want to go and target realistically in the last 16. Yeah. I think.
They will play England, Germany will be versus the winner of Sweden, Ukraine. So England versus Sweden for me.
I think both those games could go either way. I wouldn't be surprised if both went to penalties. But I stick my neck out and say England versus Sweden again. I told you, my heart tells me that we will go out. But actually, the more I'm thinking about this in my head, I actually think England could win.
If we do, then it's the winner of the Denmark-Netherlands game in the semis.
Correct.
And then France will beat us in the final.
No, they won't.
Italy will beat us in the final.
Italy will beat us in the final.
Mate, I will not be complaining because I'll get 25 squids from the work sweepstake because I'm sitting on Italy right now.
Honestly, if we win that game on Tuesday, it's on.
It is.
It's on. It will be the biggest one. It will be bigger than any of the games to come. Honestly, this will be the biggest one.
Fantastic. Right, that's that for today's episode, James. Anything else to add to the list for the listeners before we let them kick back, relax, and enjoy a weekend of football?
No, good luck. Have a good weekend. Enjoy yourselves. If you want to support Planet FPL on Patreon, you join up before the end of the month. Next month is free.
Yeah, 5 days to go. It'll be a good time to do it. Stay safe. Chat for now.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the football. Cue music, please, man child.